Welcome back, everyone, to the eCoreAcademy e-learning platform. Today, my name is AJay Raj, and I'm back with yet another anatomy and physiology science video for you all. I know this has been heavily requested upon for those of you who've been going through Science Olympiad and those competition series, and also for those of you who've been taking those higher level A&P courses, and of course your science and biology curriculums throughout your high school. So this is a very an influential topic in my life as well, and in all of our lives essentially. This has to do with the study of the human body. Just a re-insight on what I was saying before in previous videos, that this is something that all of us can relate to on either a personal scale or, of course, a learning and biological scale. This is through studies and also through comprehensibility that we can all understand this topic, and I'm here to break that down into simpler terms. Many of these terms you might have already heard about, or systems that you may have heard about. I'm trying to make those aware make you guys aware with it. And I know many of the things that you learned about in the past, or many complex topics, you may have heard of them, but you might not know exactly what they are. I'm here to help you not memorize, but to necessarily adapt and learn. I'm trying to help you guys learn it, which has to do with keeping that in the back of your mind and being able to pull it out whenever you need it. Some tests, they don't give you, your rubrics on what you need to know. So there's a lot of information, but there are very neat and efficient ways. Efficiency is key to actually memorize, or I wouldn't like to say memorize, but learn these topics and recall them within a moment's notice. So as I was talking about anatomy and physiology, we're going to be continuing the lymphatic system. So this would be the third video. My first video was the introduction to the lymphatic system, and I talked about the generalities of it and some of the cool statistics about the lymphatic system. And then afterwards, I went into the lymphatic structures in my second video. So that's a previous video to this video. So please make sure you look at that video. This goes in correlating order. However, if you would like to pull out a single video for your own reference, you may do so, but please go in that order if you're going to watch this whole course, this whole system within this anatomy and physiology course. So we're going to be taking a look at lymph circulation. So now moving apart from just those basic lymphatic structures, I'm still going to be introducing some more lymphatic structures here. We're going to be focusing mainly upon the transport of lymph throughout the entire body and what are some of its paths that it takes that are some unusual paths and some that are unique. So we're going to be looking at some of the major structures in the lymphatic system and what are their functions and how do they contribute to the overall goal of the lymphatic system, which is lymph circulation. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Lymph circulation part 1. Let's take a look at the flow of lymph. What does this process, overall entail? So the flow of lymph is a process in which fluid pressure in the lymphatic system veins is very low. So how exactly does this process work, and how does this flow go? So this flow does not happen like our blood. Blood has to do with blood pressure and our heartbeats and palpitations that actually move the blood along with that, venular pressure. However, with the flow of lymph, it's all done merely with the flow of blood, meaning it tags along with that same manner of blood. It merely just depends on the heartbeats itself, the heart palpitations, because this is a much less dense liquid and it's much less in quantity throughout the body. So not only the heart, but pressure has to be developed in that system. And unlike blood, there's no pressure within these given vessels, these given veins. Also, vessels contract rhythmically in the direction of the flow of blood. So these are vessels. These are the meeting points of these veins and the opposite of these veins. So that's when they rhythmically contract in order to push that lymph within those veins across in the direction of the flow of blood. And this flow is maintained by one-way valves. As the heart's pulsing and arteries movement helps move lymph throughout the body. As I said, it's all through the palpitations of the heart. And this is a one-way valve. This also describes the property of the fact that lymph can only move in one direction. And I'll explain that in our next slide. So it moves generally moves in a clockwise direction depending on the clearing process, but it will always stick to that same process. Anti-clockwise manner. So you can think about a clock going anti-clockwise. So for you guys, it would be this way. And in that manner, what we would be doing is we would be moving lymph in a much more simple manner. So when we have that pump moving lymph across, unlike blood, you don't need lymph in every single part of your body. However, you do need it to hit a certain part of the body after a certain period of time in order to clear out those fluids and replace it with the necessary proteins found in blood and other nutrients found throughout the body. And of course, lymph is connected to these arteries through small microfiber muscles, so they're anchored towards these arteries. So essentially, what's happening is if we're moving in this direction here, correct? So we have to have certain sites and certain functions at each of these sites here. So essentially, what I'm saying is we have to have two different properties happening here. So one property has to be the clearing of lymph, meaning clearing out those, using lymph to clear out other fluids. So clearing with lymph, I should say with lymph. I apologize. So clearing with lymph, that's clearing out all of the fluids, say for example lactic acid, all those different types of fluids, and I'll get into that, what exactly are the types of fluids in our next video in this lymphatic system series. And then of course here we have the opposite side of the spectrum, and they are located on different sides of the body. This side is where basically, and this is correlation, multiple checkpoints, but these are not necessarily checkpoints that are going to be located within each other throughout these, functions, this flow of lymph. So that's a clearing with lymph, and then of course here we're going to have the replacement of lymph. So we'll say we'll say the development of lymph. In this case, there's many properties underneath that, but essentially what's happening here is within the body, if there's certain deficiencies like calcium deficiency, iodine deficiency, the body will produce and save more of it rather than excreting it or letting it go as waste, and save it within the body and enter it into the lymph, sometimes even the bloodstream as well. But it'll also enter it into the lymph in order to carry it out through this process of draining, so that while it's there, it can branch out to the necessary organs that need this, need this vital nutrient within throughout the body, such as your thyroid gland, things like that. And also, we need the development and replacement of lymph. So once there's bad lymph, I'll talk about where exactly that might go. But it is also excreted in perspiration and also excretion, so through waste. But it's also utilized as a certain protein for the heart to run and for its palpitation. So it's very important, this link with the cardiovascular system. So let's get into the next slide and really explain that in more depth. Now, on this slide, lymph circulation part two, we're going to be looking at some of the different processes of lymph and some of some of its different utilizations throughout its circulation. So, the overall circulation of lymph is what we're focusing on. So, circulation is the process of lymph flowing throughout the body and completing its process of draining out organs. That's a main process of the lymphatic system, but there are also supplementary processes as well, processes we could say, and muscles along its contraction and along its circulation, and upon their contraction. So those muscles, like I said, with that lactic acid formed, when these muscles do not have the availability of oxygen, that's why you get oftentimes soreness. And the reason why they're actually being cleared out is because of your lymphatic system, so you don't stay sore forever, which is a very painful thing, and it can actually kill you at one point if you have too much lactic acid in your blood. And it flows in only one direction, as we had stated in the previous slide. Lymph vessels carry out the lymph in the body, but it isn't under pressure and it is propelled naturally. This is through the contraction of rhythmic contraction of those vessels, and also through the palpitations of blood. Now, another interesting thing is when a process of lymph. So let me just draw this out. So, say for example, we have lymph flowing into the kidneys, for example. We have our kidneys here. So those are both of our kidneys here. They're not exactly the same in size. One is probably larger than the other, and just a very slight bit though. And then afterwards, let's say, for example, it moves on to our spleen, and then it moves towards our thymus gland in this point. So while it's doing so, there's going to be different exchanges. You've got to think of lymph as basically a blank fluid that helps in clearing out these processes. Let's say that the kidneys have an excess of iodine. And they just have way too much salt within those kidneys. So what would happen is lymph would actually flow through these kidneys just as blood would in a similar manner, more specialized towards lymph in the lymphatic system, and it would carry out this iodine to the spleen, which, say, for example, does not have enough iodine and is lacking supplements to conduct its processes. It needs to increase its metabolic rates as an individual organ, and therefore affected by the thymus here. That's why I said your metabolic rates here, and it needs more salt to do that. It needs more salt to actually carry out that command from the thymus. The thymus is like your master gland, trying to secrete controlling all hormones, helping secrete all hormones. And in this manner, you're going to exchange more iodine into the spleen and get rid of it from the kidneys. Now let's move on to drainage, so altering of lymph. So when it comes to the heart, all fluids are extracted from the vascular system. They secrete and turn into proteins for the lymph being circulated. So in turn, what's happening here is all of your dead vascular cells, especially towards the heart and those your veins, um, and vesicles, all of those that are going to be circulated towards the heart. All blood is going to be entering the heart at some point of its process, just as lymph will always hit at least one part of its all parts of lymph. All you could say all exchanges of lymph will hit a certain part always. And in that manner, what's happening is the heart will actually take these given cells and near to the heart, these vesicles and these veins, and it will take these dead cells and actually produce them into proteins for the lymph itself. And of course, that's a protein macromolecule group that's going to be circulated to the rest of the body for utilization towards our muscles, things like that. And the lymphatic system provides the one-way movement drainage for the vascular system, condensing into waste-filled interstitial fluid as the blood capillaries then filter it out. So interstitial fluid merely means fluid that is now containing some sort of nutrient after it was a blank fluid. And these lymph capillaries take proteins and actually secrete them into certain organs or leave it into the bloodstream to produce to excrete it if necessary, but mainly for the muscles. And as you can see here, we have the heart and its many different entryways. And of course, with the heart beating so many times, you're going to have less longevity in those cells and highly quick replacement within the heart as well. So those heart cells are also not going to waste. They're going to be composed into proteins. Onto lymph ducts. So I want to introduce the biducts. And so what exactly does biducts mean? I'll explain that. So lymphatic ducts is when all lymphatic trunks merge together to form two major lymphatic ducts. And the trunks include the lumbar trunk, the bronchomediastal, subclavian, jugular, and intestinal. So there are two ducts, as you can tell. We call it the biducts because we consider those two ducts to be connected at one point, but with proposed sections of the body. So if you can't recall from the previous video, it was a very long topic on trunks. So trunks are basically these sites in which drainage occurs, um, in which drainage is actually housed at, and we have different types of trunks located along the spine. However, we also have your overall ducts, your two different types of ducts, which are actually where these drainage processes kind of differ from each other, and the circulation of lymph is also different throughout. So those are ducts are your drainage systems, and your actual trunks are where this drainage process is actually happening, draining them through the actual ducts themselves. And as you can tell, there's the lumbar trunk, bronchomediastal, subclavian, jugular, and intestinal. This has to do with the entire spinal column or the axial skeleton itself. Just a review from the previous video. Now on to the right and thoracic ducts, which if you can already infer from the previous slide, these are two different types of ducts that encompass portions and sections of each one, subclavian, your jugular, intestinal, all those different types of trunks, and encompasses certain sections of basically certain types. It's very complicated, but I'll just give you the generic direction. But it does encompass almost all of them. Both of them consist of both of them consist of all the types of trunks and sections of them. So these two ducts are known as quarterly and triquarterly because of the fact that one is 3 times as much as the other, and they represent quarters of the body. So the right lymphatic duct is very short, and it drains the upper right quadrant of the body into the subclavian at the JCT, entering the jugular vein. So subclavian at the junction. So this is the subclavian vein at the junction, and enters the jugular vein in order to actually get rid and drain that lymph. And the thoracic duct is much longer and stronger than right duct, and it drains the remaining 3/4 of the body, all of the lower body below the diaphragm, and includes the left arm as well. So this is, if you can think about it, I'll show you a diagram in the next slide. But essentially, what's happening is uh, these different ducts are emptying into different trunks in order to perspire or get rid of these waste byproducts. Continuing off of right and thoracic ducts, the quarterly and triquarterly, let's take a look at a diagram here. Essentially, what's happening here is this is your right lymphatic duct, and of course, this is your thoracic duct right here, all highlighted in the pale amount. And of course, through these different trunks, you're going to be collecting lymphatic vessels going through the thoracic duct aorta and the cisterna chyli, which I'll also explain. And then, of course, we have cervical, axillary, and inguinal nodes, which are the different types of basically lymph nodes, which I'll also explain in the next slides, actually, in the next couple of slides. And you have your entrance ways through, of course, your subclavian vein, and also from sprouting down to the intestines, all the way to the genital area. Now for lymph nodes, part one. This is probably my most, my favorite organ of all time, and then within the body, because it's considered a mini organ. It's not considered, your generic organ, because it's so small and its functions are much more limited than that of a larger organ, and the amount of fluid that goes through it is much less. So lymph nodes, also known to be, I apologize, that should be a B. Just known to be lymph glands, are in an oval shape as they vary from size as a pinhead to a lima bean. So these are very, very small organs, and they are the most numerous lymph organs. And the purpose of them is to cleanse lymph as it flows through the upper nodes of the sinuses, removes microorganisms and foreign matter as they alert the immune system of any possible pathogens. So these are your largest lymph nodes located in your sinuses, but they're also located near the the side of the chest, lower armpit. They're also located within the genitals, and near the back of the spine as well. And what exactly are the values of these lymph nodes? So these lymph nodes help to cleanse lymph once they go through. They also help secrete, meaning they take out certain needed nutrients and they excrete it back into the bloodstream or lymph again, or they absorb those proteins out from the blood and insert it into lymph itself, like those dead proteins from those all these vascular cells will also be synthesized into protein through these lymph nodes. And also, likewise, these are very small. These are very small. Lymph nodes are very small in general. And the thing is, you probably have had many experiences with lymph nodes. Everyone has, because if you go to the doctor, oftentimes, if you're doing a general checkup, they'll, check your tongue, check your throat, check your ears. But they'll also check right under your jawline, near your throat. Check through your mouth. Also down here, they'll start to feel the sides of your throat the near your esophagus, right around your esophagus. And if you touch around, you should feel like little squirmy things. And around those things, like within those things, you have something called your lymph nodes. Those are your lymph nodes. And the reason that they feel around for them is to see if you have an infection or some sort of illness. When your lymph nodes are highly inflamed, specifically your sinuses, nowhere else. When your sinus lymph nodes are inflamed, that's one of the major signs for a certain type of fever that's not showing up on the outside. So it shows any feverish or sickness that's possible within the body, specifically a sinus type of infection, such as a cold, a fever, or a sinus infection overall. And yes, I have had a sinus infection, and that was the way that it was detected immediately. Lymph nodes part 2, let's just take a look at a simple function of the nodes. So function of nodes are, so the fact that there are white blood cells within each node, and they actually remove 99% of all impurities, and lymph passes from node to node. So the construction of nodes themselves, they also filter out the lymph, but also pathogens within lymph nodes. They have to be taken care of by the immune system, because the lymphatic system does not have any direct response to that, other than your immunizing cells, which are located towards the skin and your in more towards your integumentary system related. But these white blood cells will help kill 99% of all impurities as lymph passes from node to node. And that's very interesting, because there are clusters of nodes like the concave, submental, and submaxillary lymph nodes that are located throughout the sinuses, and they're also located near the upper arm and chest, some near the also genital nodes, and your back near your tailbone as well. And so there's the reason that there's not nodes spread equally in equal distance units across the entire body, because it's not necessary for the body. We can have clusters of nodes that ensure that all impurities are taken care of within those clusters, and they have a highest maximizing power and most amount of white blood cells to take care of that and filter out these impurities. And that's because lymph is going to hit every single part of the body anyway. So once it's on that circulation, it clears it at each different point, so that the chance for a pathogen getting through, or some sort of an increase in essentially in certain nutrients within the body that are supposed to be excreted, but they stay within the bloodstream, that can be dangerous. And your nodes in these clusters really take care of that. So, this is an example of, a pathogen here entering a white blood cell. Just to review in your immune system, what happens is these are called your phagocytes. They're one type of white blood cells, and essentially they consume these pathogens. They form these like these little areolas around them, and essentially they decompose them and use them as fuel, basically for white blood cells as well. And they have these absorption spots within the nodes themselves. All right, everyone. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This has been the eCoreAcademy learning platform. Please make sure to like and subscribe down below, and don't feel free to utilize the comment section as well. And turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on any of our channel's latest uploads. Also, visit our website at www.ecoreacademy.org and check out our email at eCoreAcademy. Email us at eCoreAcademy@gmail.com if you have any questions. Our other socials are in the description box below at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please check those mediums out and use all of those mediums to share all of our videos. Once again, everyone, this has been AJay Raj. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.